What's up, fight fans? Your boy Nick Portella, MMA.com. I have on the phone today my man, Duckett.
Yo, what's going on?
What's up, Mike? How are you, buddy? Mike, how you doing?
I'm doing good. How about yourself? Shout out to all the Philly fans. I know we're flying high right now.
Oh, there you go. You know I'm one of them. I even put something on the site about it.
Yes, sir. I'm there with you.
So, Mike, this has been a long time coming. I know we've talked in the past about when you're going to make your pro debut.
Yep.
The time is here. So let's roll right into it. So for you, what does it mean to you to be a fighter? I mean, I know you love this game. I know you like throwing down, but what does it mean to you?
I feel like, I don't know, ever since I was a kid, there's I don't know if it was with me since birth or something, but I've always been a fighter in every situation, you know, and not just physically fighting, but you know, mentally fighting and emotionally. I've always been a fighter, and I'm a firm believer that, you know, if it wasn't for MMA, I would still be fighting in, you know, one way or another. So that fighting mentality has been instilled with me since birth, since childhood, you know. And once I found a outlet for it, being MMA, and that I was able to do this, and I found that I was you know, relatively good at it. You know, it means the world to me. I can't even put in words how much fighting means to me.
Right, it's your, you know, live breathe it kind of thing. So I know, I'm pretty sure you started traditional martial arts around the age of 11. That's accurate? At
Yep.
what age did you begin training for mixed martial arts, like kind of out of the norm and started to mix things in?
Well, I'm 27 now. I started karate around the age of 11. You know, as a kid, you know, keep me out of trouble. But as I grew older and kind of learned a little bit more, I found that the karate that I was learning was more of just, you know, not realistic fighting karate. Like, I couldn't use it to beat anybody up. If I tried to use the karate I learned, I would get my face smashed. So I want to say it was, I went and saw my first local MMA event around 21 or 22, and I found out that I could train locally, and there were a bunch of gyms and fights locally. So it was about 21 or 22 that I got hooked up with my first MMA gym and really started training the game of MMA.
Right, now I know your first gym was Marty's Martial Arts, Rock Island, correct?
Yes, that is correct.
And then you transferred over to MMAG in Davenport.
Yes.
So how long have you been with MMAG?
I have been with MMAG, the Midwest Martial Arts Group, for just a little over a year now. I started training with them last January before I fought my current opponent last year.
Oh, okay. The guy you're going to see again shortly.
Yep. Yes, sir.
I actually wanted to touch on one other thing. I know we've talked in the past about it. When I asked you what you train, you told me you train in MMA. So, I mean, for you, like a lot of guys, they have a belt in this, a belt in that. Do you totally just disregard the belts and you just train everything? I train in everything. Like, none of it means the belts don't really matter. It seems like in your case.
You know, before I ever got a belt, you know, I always looked up highly to people that had belts. You know, they're champions. But
right.
in some organizations, you know, they just kind of just give belts to whoever wants to fight for them. So in that aspect, some of them don't mean as much. But a belt to me always means a lot because it's something that I can hold on to and something that I'll be able to show my kids or my grandkids. And even if I don't become big in this sport or I don't do great things in my life or big things, I still have these belts to say, look, you know, I accomplished something, you know, and I worked hard to get it.
Right. Now, sticking with the belt topic for training, I know, what disciplines do you train? I know you've told me you're just MMA. You train it all. But what
Right.
disciplines does that include? I mean, I know you got great striking, so boxing and kickboxing is a part of it. But what disciplines do you involve yourself with?
Really, I do everything. My biggest thing is recently I've gotten into strength and conditioning at Big Five Power and Conditioning. So that's my big thing. But otherwise at MMAG we have striking days and we have grappling days, and we don't have a belt system or nothing like that. We go in there, we go over drills, we go over moves, and then we do live grappling or live sparring, and that includes boxing or kickboxing on the striking days. And on the grappling days, it'll be jiu-jitsu and wrestling. So I don't really train anything specifically because I feel like that will make somebody rely on that. If I train boxing more than anything, then I feel like in the cage I'm gonna be heavy-footed. I'm gonna be heavy on my front foot. I'm gonna want to box,
Right.
and not be ready for kicks or elbows or whatever. So I like to keep it MMA and train everything and be prepared for everything.
Right, and there's a bunch of you got a lot of like killers that train out in your area. Some of the guys that I know and stuff. So I know your sparring and everything is great where you are. Now, for training camps, do you ever cross train at other gyms, or do you keep everything at home?
Yeah, we actually do a lot of cross training. We have Sunday sparring at MMAG, which is that's our hard sparring day of the week. Right. And we get guys from all across the state that come over for our Sunday sparring. So we get Eric Wisely, the UFC veteran. We get a lot of great looks from a lot of different camps. So a lot of guys like to come in on our Sunday sparring days, and it really helps because during the remainder of the week, it's just us normal gym guys. But then on Sunday sparring, we get all these different killers coming from across the state to, give us different looks.
Right, and you don't know, like you could figure out your sparring partner after 6 months if it's the same person.
Yeah. So that's what I really like about our Sunday sparring classes. We get different looks, and it's not just different looks. We get different looks from killers.
Right.
Killers across the state.
Right, and that's good. It only makes you better. So
exactly.
The fact that you get all these different looks and you train everything and you don't rely on one thing, what do you think your best attribute is as a mixed martial artist? I mean, not saying you rely on one thing, but what is, some guys say toughness or whatever. What do you think your thing is?
I think I'm just gritty, man. I like to get down and dirty, man. I like to get in there and make it a fight, That's my biggest strong suit, is just making it a fight and being gritty. I love those gritty brawls. Punch me and I'm gonna punch you, and let's see whose chin lasts longer. That's right. That's what I like, and I do rely, I would say, on my stand up more. I'm sprawl and brawl until I die, and so my game plan doesn't never change, and I'll tell that to every opponent I fight. I'm coming to sprawl and brawl with you. So I would say that just my grittiness is my best attribute, but I think that's followed a close second by my stand-up.
Yeah. So now, I always ask everybody, because nicknames are cool, how did we arrive at the nickname Diesel?
Well, it's a funny story, man. Me and my brother, Brent the Beast Cooper, we were out having drinks one time, and this is after I've had a couple fights. And, didn't really have a nickname, and we were just out having some drinks, man, and he just called me Mike Diesel out of the blue, and I was like, man, I kind of like that, and it just stuck with me ever since that night in the bar, man.
Now, it's funny that you said that story because, as you know, I've talked to Brent, too.
Right.
Isn't there another funny story how he got into fighting? Wasn't it another bar bet, like, I bet you won't show up? Something crazy like that, and he just showed up, and that was it.
Yeah. We were drinking one night, and this was he hadn't been fighting at the time, and I had been fighting for a little while, And, you know, I'd always nag him about coming into the gym, you know, because he had reputations of pretty good, being a badass on the streets, you know. So I told him, come on, get in the gym. He said, oh, no, you know, if I get in there, I'm not going to stop. And I said, man, I bet you won't. And he said, all right, we'll see. I said, all right, we'll see tomorrow. And sure enough, he woke up. He was hungover, but, man, he came into the gym, and he ain't stopped since.
Yeah, now he's a couple of fights deep. So now this next one, this is one of the questions you have to write down because there's so much. So right now, before your pro debut, as an amateur, you're the XFS lightweight champ, the QCFC welterweight champ, the GFS middleweight champ, and you're also the Cage Aggression welterweight champ.
You got them all right, man.
Yeah. How hard is it to cut weight? I mean, you played at 55, 70, and 85, and you defend them all. So how hard is it? Like, what do you walk around at? And, I mean, what is the game plan to make 3 weight classes?
Well,
it's crazy.
I used to fight strictly at 55, and then, you know, I kind of went up to 70, and I fought strictly at 55 and 70. And then, you know, I kind of said, well, what the hell, you know, 85 needs some fashion, needs some sparks. I went up to 85. I usually walk around somewhere in the 190s, and as an amateur, I'm like 25 fights deep. So every single fight I had, I learned something more about cutting weight, and so, you know, it made it easier. And at 85, you know, it's kind of harder because I'm fighting a lot bigger guys than myself. And at 55, you know, I'm so drained that, you know, I can barely, you know, stand up and take a piss without passing out. But I feel like 70 is a perfect weight class for me. But yeah, struggling, you know, I get fight offers all the time since, you know, I'm fighting 3 different weight classes. You know, I get hit up every couple of days about somebody looking for a middleweight or somebody looking for a lightweight or a welterweight, and it kind of makes it harder to juggle. But, you know, I like to mix it up. You know, I like to get different looks when I'm in there.
Absolutely. So what methods do you use since you fight at such a broad range? Do you, like, figure out where you're fighting way out and you diet down and then cut the water at the end? Or, like, do you have, like, a system?
Yeah. So what I try to do is I try to cut out carbs a couple weeks out, you know, because carbs and sodium is what keeps water in your body. So
right.
And so I'll try to cut carbs out a couple weeks out, and then the week of the fight, like the final 7 days, I feel like I have it down to, like, I know my body so well that in the last 7 days, whatever I have left to cut, I know that I can come in on weight, because in my last 3 fights, I want to say I cut 23 pounds in 5 days, I cut 27 pounds in 7 days, and I cut 25 pounds in 5 days. So in the last week, I cut out all sodium, all carbs, so I have nothing holding water into my body, and then I'll gradually cut down my water intake the last few days as I'm starting to get in the sauna and take my hot baths. And then so by the day of weigh-ins, that last day, you know, I only have like 4 or 5 pounds I have to cut, and that makes it, you know, that makes the weigh-in day really a lot easier.
And you feel healthy following that method? You seem to have figured out a method that works for you. Yeah.
It was a long time, you know. It took a long ways to get here and to figure, because you have to figure your body out, because what works for me to cut weight my way is not going to work for the next guy, you know.
Right.
You have it's trial and error, you know. You have to that's why I'm a big fan of test cuts. Like, you know, if you got 40 pounds to cut, you want to do a test cut before, you know, it gets too short. You want to do a test cut, you know, in camp to make sure that you can make that weight the right way. You know, you don't want to try it somebody else's way because somebody's telling you that this works for them, and it might not work for you. So it took a lot of trial and error, like 25 fights worth of trial and error to really get it down to my method that works for my body.
But now I can't recall. I don't actually. I believe you've never missed weight.
I've missed weight
one time.
Yeah, I missed weight one time, and this was, let's see, I want to say, man, maybe like 4 or 5 years ago, I missed weight one time, and it was even as an amateur, it was absolutely embarrassing, to be one of the guys that comes in overweight, and you gotta pay your opponent, and so, I mean, it's really not good look. And after that, man, I've never missed weight, and so that's something that I'm really proud of. After that is, I figured it out. After that, I really took dieting seriously, and my weight, and really cutting weight smart after that.
So now, you said, well, we know you have tons of fights. So you're ending your amateur career on a 4-fight win streak,
yep.
Pulling in with a record of 15-9.
Yep.
The 15 wins are important, but what's more important, how much did you learn from the 9 losses? Because every loss, I mean, it's not good to lose, but I think if you take something from the loss, it's a good loss if you learn something.
Right, that's it. We have a saying, it's not a loss if you learn from it. And I had 9 lessons. I had 9 lessons I learned from. I learned a lot because I feel like of those 9 losses, I want to say like 6 or 7 of them were fights that I took on a week's notice or less. So I definitely learned from those 6 or 7 fights, stop taking fights on short notice that you're not ready for. And the other few, I feel like my cardio was an issue. And so from those losses, I really learned that, cardio is just as important as, stand-up or grappling in this game or mental warfare. So it really taught me a lot. Those 9 lessons, I feel like I learned more in those 9 losses than I did from, all 15 of my wins combined.
Right. So now, pro debut, Cage Aggression, 2-night event. This one's called The Champions, March 9th, March 10th. Which night you're fighting on the 10th, I believe, yes?
Yes, sir.
All right, so now the interesting part. You're fighting a fellow pro debuter, Bobby Downs, who you faced a year ago.
A year ago today.
You won that fight via decision, but the little part that I noticed is that he has not fought since then, and you've been very active since then. Without stirring the pot or trash talking, how do you see this fight go in this round?
I love to stir the pot, man. But
you can feel free. I just never like doing it, but you can, do whatever you got to do.
Oh no, man. The bad blood between me and Bobby ain't nothing new. We fought a year ago, and going into it, there was some trash talk between us. He kind of said some things that got under my skin, and I reciprocated it. And I seen him at weigh-ins, and I feel like at weigh-ins I put the fear of God in him, and I won the fight then. But we go out, we have a 3-round fight. I win by unanimous decision. At the end of the 3rd round, I dropped him, and I was on top ground and pounding when the bell rang. So on March 10th, I intend to just pick up where I left off, and that's with him sitting on the canvas looking up, saying, "What happened?"
Now, do you think that his year off of fighting and your year of actively fighting is going to have play some kind of part in this? Because it's one thing to train and spar, but it's different when you're actually fighting. Do you think this is going to be a big hurt for his game?
Oh, definitely. He was so devastated by the whooping that I put on him because I'm coming in. That was my 2nd fight at 185. And nobody gave me really a chance in hell to beat this guy who was number 2 in the state at the time at 85. And I came out and I just dog walked him. And so that put my man's into retirement, and he never wanted to fight again until they gave him the call that he can have redemption. And so he jumped up like a dog getting a treat at that. You know, he wants his redemption. And you know, I feel like I really don't know what he's done since then, but I know what I've done. I beat him. I captured the caged aggression welterweight belt. I defended it, and now I'm going pro, and he sat around on the couch maybe lifting a few weights. So, you know, them weights that he was lifting really ain't helping nothing.
No,
so
not at all.
I mean, I can speculate, and he can speculate, but really it's just going to come down to March 10th. We're going to see what happens. We're going to see if ring rust is a real thing.
Yeah, absolutely. And you guys are meeting at what? At 70 for the debut, right?
We're fighting at a catch weight of 175. We first fought at 185, and I opted this time. You know, they came at me with the offer to fight him again. So I'm like, for sure, I'll be 1-0 as a pro. You know, that's easy money. And they were like, well, that, you know, he wants it at 85, and I said, no. Last time, you know, I fought on his terms and I whooped him. So now we're going to do it on my terms. I want 170 because that's my weight class now. But all the weights he's been lifting and all the juice he got in him, he's a big boy now. So he wanted to do 175. I said, run it. Let's go.
Yeah, you were ready. You're like, that's right around my weight class. We could absolutely get it at that weight. Now you have teammates. You also have teammates fighting on the card that night, don't you?
Yeah, you know,
there's a bunch of guys out there.
Yeah, and that's what I really like about the Cage Aggression 2-night event is it's amateur and pro, so we got like damn near everybody in the gym fighting on the card, you know. We got, if I can take a minute to name some names,
yeah, go for it.
We got the Burke twins that are little 115ers that, man, they put on a show every time they go out there. They're fighting. We got a really strong wrestler, Jake Mellick. He's fighting. These are amateurs. And on the pro side, we got Avion Rodriguez, who got some of the slickest stand-up you'll ever see. Randy Mead, who is just a fucking tank. Myself making my pro debut, and in the main event, we got my man Sean West.
Oh, so Sean, good dude right there.
Yeah, so we're really putting on for our city this time.
So now, on the lighter side of things, because obviously you think you're going to win the fight.
Right.
Since you've done all these things, I mean, you've had 24 fights, you've took losses, you've took wins, you know, you've learned a lot along the way. If you had to give out one piece of advice, let's say a guy walks into your gym and wants to start his career in MMA, never had a fight, looking to make an amateur debut, what advice would you give to somebody brand new coming in? You know, you can give them advice from your playbook.
Man, I'd just say learn the game first and be smart. You know, I took my first fight when I had, you know, only had a couple months of training under my belt, and you know that's when I took a lot of my losses, and I would take a lot of dumb fights, you know, short notice fights or you know fights that I weren't really prepared for. So I would just tell them get used to the game first. Make sure you're comfortable in all aspects of fighting because it's a fight and anything can happen. And also to be smart, man. Pick your fight smart and you know don't waste your fighting career on dumb moves. You know.
Right. So I actually want to give you a second. I want to give you the floor if you have any like thank yous or sponsors, anybody you want to shout out.
Man.
Go ahead and take as much time as you need to get it all out there.
This might take a second. I want to give a shout out to Whiteout Promotions, my management company, Midwest Martial Arts Group, and Big Five Strength and Conditioning, my gyms, everybody that helps me train in those gyms. My strength and conditioning coach, Josh Howlett, Jessica Johnstone at Balance Chiropractic, Roar MMA apparel for all the great spandex, I want to give a shout out to my girl for, helping me through all the weight cuts and the stresses that come with fighting. Garden City Tattoo for all the good ink. Sure Fit mouth guards, keeping my teeth straight. Combat Corner for the awesome shorts. Fuck, man, everybody that comes out and watches me fight, everybody listening right now, all you guys, man.
Yeah, well, you know what? Your following is big. That's why we had to get you on here before the debut. As for me, I'd like to thank my sponsor, Primal Gym, and a shout out to my guy Wayne at Top Team Management. Also, I want to thank Mike for his time. I know it's getting close, like to the grind on his camp. And hey, man, I wish you the best of luck in the fight. Also, is there a way for people listening is Cage Aggressions a streamed event that people can tune in to check you out for your debut?
Actually, for everybody that's not located around the Quad City area, about 2 weeks after the show, the good thing about Cage Aggression is all the fights will be on YouTube. So if you do miss the live event, just give it about 2 or 3 weeks, and you can watch it on YouTube with the best camera resolution you'll ever see.
Well, and for those who don't want to wait, I'm going to have me and Mike are going to talk again after his pro debut. Check in, see how he enjoyed the pro grind. And Mike, again, I wish you the best of luck, buddy, in your fight. And we'll talk again definitely very soon after this debut happens.
Thank you, Nick, and thank you for your time. And shout out Philly. We did it, baby.
You're my man. All right, Mike, I'll talk to you later, bud.
All right, you have a good one.
You too. Take care.
All right, bye-bye.
All right, bye.